Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be continuing on the Scout. So I have a few things that have been bothering me. Mostly when we loaded it, this back quarter panel fell on the tire and it popped all the plug welds on this body piece here. So right here, and then also this seam inside the tailgate. So this whole panel is pretty much loose. So one of the things I want to get done is just basically go through in here and then pinch that back together, put some welds on that to make those one piece. Same thing with the inside. Another thing we're going to get started on is I'm going to go through on the bumper and I am going to throw some gussets in there. So basically where it connects to the frame, you can't really see too well, where it connects to the frame on both sides, I'm going to put some gussets, and I'm going to do one in the middle as well, just to help add some structure to that. So I'm going to go ahead, I got to get my CNC plasma set up for that. I don't have to, but I'm going to. It's just a little easier and I can do other things while it's cutting. So go ahead and get that set up and then we'll start getting some pieces cut. Alright, so nice if that compressor turned off. But basically what we got going on here is where this angle iron is, it's welded to the frame, and then the bumper is welded to the angle iron. So I'm going to go ahead and finish welding it on the top of the frame on the inside here, and then I cut out these gussets that are going to go in there as well, just to help give it some structure. I have one for each side of the frame on both sides, and then I might end up doing one in the middle here or something. So yeah, I forgot I need to grind out the middles on these. As you can see, they don't sit in there perfect. It's because this is radiused and this is sharp. So before I even do any of this, I'm going to go ahead and grind out the corners just so they fit in here a little better. Awesome. We got those radiused, ready to go. Go ahead and get them burnt in there. I'm going to start off with just welding the top of the frame to the angle iron, and then once that's welded in, I'm going to go ahead and throw the gussets on there just to make sure there's as much weld as possible, because that's, you know, it's holding all my suspension parts. So I want to be as strong as possible. I don't want to go anywhere. It's also going to be supporting the bumper, so if I ever add anything to it like a tire carrier or toe points, I don't want it to get ripped out. So as much structure as possible, the better. So the biggest reason why I'm adding these gussets is because right here there's a big opening. So I'm only able to get weld on the top and then maybe a couple tacks on the bottom. But if I throw this gusset in there, it'll let me get weld, a little more weld on the frame side. I probably could have made this a square, but I already have them cut out, so I'm just going to leave them as triangles. If I need to add material later, I can do that. Don't judge, okay? But yeah, let's go ahead. A little more in here. Perfect. You know, it seems like sometimes people have a lot to say about welding downhill. I've honestly never had any issues welding downhill. I haven't had anything break. I have heard that it is stronger to weld uphill, but sometimes I'm just lazy, so I don't think there's an issue with welding downhill. If anyone in the comments disagrees, I'm sure you'll leave a comment, but I welded downhill and I'm gonna weld downhill in all these, so that's just how it is. They look good, it's easier to do, and it's gonna be perfectly strong. So I got 3 more to do, and then we'll move on to finishing welding out the bumper here. All right, so I'm not a body work guy, so don't judge. I got that seam welded up. On the inside here, it was just kind of tight. You can't even really get to that seam to seam weld it. There's not enough room coming up from this side, so I just said, heck, we'll weld it on the outside. It's a rock crawler, who cares? So I got those welded up. I got some plug welds put on there, and that is all good to go. Now my tailgate's actually not flopping around. I gotta put my chains on there and make some new chains and whatnot, but that is a lot better than it used to be. So don't judge me. The guy I bought this Scout from, he actually was the one that told me that all Scouts need for body work is a good hammer. So I pulled my hammer out, hammered it all up to where it lined up as good as I could get it, and that's where we are. So that's gonna stay like that because it's welded, and if it breaks off while we're rock crawling, I can just weld it again. All right, so the next thing is we're gonna try to get this 300 put in tomorrow. So first things first, I have factory motor mounts on there. So I gotta go ahead and pull those off, take some measurements so I can cut out some new motor mounts, and then I'm gonna build my own motor mounts basically. So go ahead and get those pulled off. So I got the old motor mounts pulled off because we're not gonna be using those. It's all gonna be custom stuff. I made this little motor mount for the side here. I do have to cut a tube that goes between this upper mount and the plate, so I can weld it in and then bolt the third one in there. And then I have these, it's basically a piece of DOM with some bushings and a bolt. This is from Barnes as well. I'm gonna go ahead, weld that onto there, and this will give me my rubber isolator. So I accidentally cut 2 passenger side ones. Come to find out the driver's side is different, so I ended up making this one for the driver's side. Same thing, the gap on the top is a little bit smaller, so I have some scrap tubing I'm gonna measure and cut to put in there, weld it to the back side, and then I have to get some longer bolts tomorrow for this, but it's looking pretty good. I know these aren't really your standard shaped engine mounts, but I think they're a little goofy looking, which I kind of like. They're not perfect. Nothing's really straight on them, so I think they're gonna look pretty good. You know, you're never really gonna see them, but it's something that maybe someone will remember and they'll point out. But yeah, so hopefully tomorrow I should be able to get this engine placed in the Scout, and then I can start working on the mounts from these to the frame. All right, so I got the mounts tacked on there. Basically what I ended up doing is I measured the angle of the motor on the stand. It was about 1.5 degrees. So then I set these angled down another 2.5 degrees, so that when the motor, you want it so that the front of the motor is higher than the back, so then your transmission and transfer case point down towards your axle. So when the motor is up, these are going to be flat, which is going to set my motor at about 4 degrees. Basically what I was reading online is you want between 3 to 5, so 4 degrees is happy middle ground. And we're all about happy middle grounds on the Mullet Scout. So got those tacked in, both sides. They are at the exact same degree, so I know it's not super important because I can always build my mounts different, but it's something that I'm going to notice. If I know that one mount's not the same as the other, it's going to bother me. I can get away with my plates just because there are clearancing issues, but these have to be perfectly parallel with each other, or else it's going to bother me. So I'm going to go ahead and go to bed, get some sleep. It's about midnight. And then we'll be back tomorrow morning to hopefully get this in the Scout. All right, so last night when we finished off, I had the motor mounts on. They just need to be cleaned up and then some spacers made. So I went ahead and got those made. This morning, they look pretty good. There's that one. And the other side, it's a little bit smaller of a spacer, but they look good. I went ahead and grabbed some chain, fixed my tailgate. It had some smaller chain on it and some hooks that didn't really work, so I threw some carabiners on there and hooked it up. So hopefully that works a little better. I also went and got some hardware for the mounts because the top bolts needed a longer bolt. The factory mounts, they basically bottom two were flush and then it went in to go flush against it, so I had to get a little bit longer bolts from the hardware store to make that work. That's all good to go. I also picked up some hardware, just a few bolts to put on the top, so when I'm storing this thing this winter, the top doesn't fly off or slide off or anything happening with that, especially when I'm moving it around. So I'm gonna go ahead, put the hardware on the top here, and then I'm gonna try to get this engine off the stand and then get it placed inside the engine bay. So I got the 300 pulled off the stand. I got the bell housing bolted on the back, pulled it off the trans and slap that on the back. I'm gonna go ahead, pull this out there. I need to pressure wash the engine bay a little bit. It's got some grease and grime and whatnot, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with the pressure washer. I need to cut the rest of the motor mounts off, and then I just gotta clean up that section so I can build my new motor mounts. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and get this motor pulled out here and get pressure washing everything. So I got everything sprayed down in here. I got those engine mounts grinded off. Now it's time to get the engine and plop it in there. Running into some issues. First thing, it's really hard to get a motor in by yourself with a tractor. It's hard to see what's going on in there, so I'm just hitting a lot of stuff. But big noticeable thing is these up here in the fronts gotta go. They're gonna have to go for my axle and my shocks anyways. I was just avoiding cutting it because I wanted to cut less and see if I keep as much as possible, but this whole center chunk here has to get cut out. So what I'm gonna end up doing is just behind the radiator support, I'm gonna cut the whole thing out. I'll probably end up adding in some tubing and whatnot on the front end here with the shock hoops to give it some more structure and build a radiator support. But I'm just gonna go ahead and get the plasma and just cut this whole front section off. Alright, so I got the whole front clip cut off. The plasma torch. You should have plenty of room now just to slip that 300 on in there. And also I can throw my shocks up on here and get those tested for shock mounts, so it should be pretty nice. Alright, so we still need to go back a ways. We're getting pretty close to hitting on the air box, or whatever you want to call this. This is for the vent system going into the cab. So we're gonna have to go down with it, which is actually good because it's gonna bring our center of gravity down. But in order to go down, I gotta remove this cross member, which is fine. I kind of figured I'd probably end up having to cut the front end of this frame off. It is 4 lengths, so it's not that big of a deal. If it was leaf springs, it would, we'd have to build something, but I'm not too worried about it. So I'm just gonna go ahead, for now, just cut out the center cross member. I'll probably weld in a piece on the front just to keep the frame square, so that when I cut that out, it doesn't, get wider or get narrower or anything. and then I'll go ahead and drop the motor down and push it back. We are clearing the axle very good, so I can pretty much go as low as I want with this motor, and we shouldn't run into any issues with the links. I still need to flex it and make sure nothing's hitting, but the whole motor is going to be way behind the axle, so we should be fine with that. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead, pull the motor out, weld a bar across here, and then cut that cross piece out. All right, got that cut out. Now it should just be able to slip right on in there. All right, this is what we're looking at. It's in there. I can go up a little bit. I'm trying to keep it as high as possible so I don't hit my oil pan on anything, but I also want to keep it as far back as possible so I have room for my transmission and everything. So we can go, I probably shouldn't go up at all in case I need to take this valve cover off to service anything. But it's in there. I do have to make sure that we're at the right angle, but it's not sitting too low. I think it'll be okay there. Might have to build, I'm not definitely have to build some skid plates for it. But in terms of transmission, I measured from the bell housing, it's 4 inches to the center. So we're just going to be at that 4 inches to have the shifter just like right here. It'll work pretty good. Looks like we should have a good spot to mount. Yeah, we got plenty of room there to mount for our engine mounts. Just gotta center it up left and right, and then make sure that's at the right angle, and then we can go ahead and build some mounts for it. All right, I'll be honest, I was struggling a little bit. I made some cardboard templates for my motor mounts. I got just so into it I forgot to film a lot of that stuff, but motor mounts are in for the most part. Welds aren't the nicest looking, but they will definitely hold. I still need a weld where the bushings are. I just need to take it all apart so I can weld them without the bushings in it. And then I need to box all this stuff in, but the motor is sitting in there. I'm noticing, I don't think it's square. I think it's kicked out towards the passenger on the rear a little bit. So I might need to play around with that and get it to move over a little bit, but I should be able to do that with the transmission cross member. I got one of my coilovers mocked up in here with the coil off at full bump. This technically isn't full bump. I'm not really sure where I'm gonna go yet, but I can lower it quite a bit. My plan is I'm gonna cut off my 4-link mounts, move them in a bit because the motor is so far back, they can pretty much be together in the middle and it shouldn't contact the pan or any of that stuff. So that's the plan for the next video, is to get the transmission in and the transmission cross member, and then finalize the 4-link up here. But I just want to go ahead and close the hood and just kind of see how everything's going to fit with the coilovers and whatnot. All right, so this is going to be full bump. You can see my frame is about 1 inch off the truss on either side. I gotta cut off the rest of this bracket still, but this is what we're gonna consider full bump. So my shocks or my coilovers right now bottomed out. They fit just barely underneath the hood, so we're probably gonna trim the hood a little bit depending on the shock hoops I build. Yeah, I mean 20 inches from the bottom of the frame to the ground in the front. So generally when people talk about their belly height, that's off the belly. So you can see the frame goes down. Typically you want a 20-25 inch belly height. So considering that I'm at 20 inches on the front, we're definitely gonna be able to make this thing low, which is gonna be awesome. I want my ride height to be about 5 inches of the travel, 5 inches into the travel, I guess. I don't know how you'd word that, but 5 inches of shaft exposed on the front coilovers. So honestly, that's going to give me 25 inches off the frame. So it's going to be very low belly height, which I'm not sure if that's what I want. Like I said, I kind of want to be 20 to 25 inches. So maybe it'll be right there in the perfect zone, but we will see. I got to get this tire aired up. But yeah, the engine's in there. Got the coilover just mocked up and I'm pretty happy with it. So the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna move my link mounts more closer to the middle because I have the motor in here now, so I can look at it and say, okay, this link can go over whatever amount of inches until it starts to contact the motor. This link can go over until it starts to contact parts on the motor. So that's the plan for the next video. Move the links in on the axle, and then I'm also going to cut the link mounts off the frame and then shorten my upper links like we kind of talked about. It looks like I have plenty of clearance on the motor mounts I built for me to be able to move those links up and hopefully be able to get them parallel. That way at ride height they can be perfectly level. As you can see right now, it's pretty steep angle going up, but we will see kind of where it goes, what happens with the links as we start to move things around and play with them. But I'm pretty happy. Like I mentioned, I don't know if my motor is completely straight in there. I know that the crank is centered between the frame rails, but I'm not sure if it is back there or not. Things get kind of weird on the frame, so it's hard to measure it. But if it's not, if I have any issues with my transmission or driveline stuff, I'm sure I won't. But if I run into it, I can always, you know, move some stuff. So yeah, not too shabby. Hood closes. Like I said, we're going to be pretty close with our coilovers, but if I have to cut some holes in the hood to fit the coilovers, that's fine. But this thing is turning out pretty slick, so I'm going to go ahead, get those tires aired up, move it back around to the side of the shop, and then it's just going to hang out for a few more weeks until I get some more time to work on it. So thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you're enjoying the series. If there's anything you want to see done on this, experimental, I'm all about that kind of stuff. So like my doubler that I'm thinking about doing, looking at how much room I have in there for drive lines, I might not have enough space to do it. It was kind of, I had to push the motor pretty far back in there, so my transmission, I would have room for the stick to go through the floor. If I was using an auto, I could get away with the motor being farther forward. That would give me more room for doublers and whatnot. I'm going to try to do the doubler. It's a 1345 or 1354 some Borg Warner T-case over an NP205. I'm going to try to do it if I have enough room, but like I said, I don't know if I will have enough room. So stick along, leave a comment if there's anything you guys want to see in these videos. Sorry, you know, like I didn't film the motor mounts being built for the most part, but I'll try to do better. Sometimes I just get in the headspace. It's like we gotta go. So that's kind of what happened. But I'll try to do better about filming it. And then yeah, if there's anything you guys want to see, let me know. Leave a comment. If you hated this video, leave a comment. Yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.